You won't believe why he broke out of prison. The most polite prison break. In the world of prison escapes, we've heard it all. Tunnels dug with spoons, helicopters hijacked, elaborate schemes involving fake identities or swapped uniforms. But this is the story of the most baffling prison breaks in history, perhaps the most polite one ever recorded. And this was not a chase for freedom, not for revenge, but because of a toothache. Yes, you heard it right, a toothache. This is the story of Johan Gustafsson, a Swedish prisoner whose pain tolerance and honesty gained him unexpected fame. This isn't just a bizarre footnote in criminal history. It's a tale of human dignity, broken systems, and the unlikeliest of heroes. Let's take it from the beginning. Johan Gustafsson was born in Burs, Sweden, in 1981, a quiet child. He grew up in a modest working-class household. His parents divorced early, and Johan bounced between his mother's apartment and his father's farm outside the city. He wasn't the kind of boy you'd expect to end up behind bars. Teachers remembered him as withdrawn but curious. He liked fixing things: bicycles, radios, even old vacuum cleaners. But things changed when Johan turned 16. The wrong crowd, small thefts, and a curiosity for rebellion grew into a habit. He dropped out of school and began a nomadic lifestyle that led him down some dark paths. By his mid-20s, Johan had multiple minor convictions: burglary, drug possession, vandalism. He was in and out of the system. Sweden's progressive justice model focused more on rehabilitation than punishment. But some habits go deeper than systems can reach. In 2012, Johan made the mistake that would lead to his longest sentence yet. One winter night, in a sleepy suburb outside Gothenburg, Johan and a companion broke into a rural home they assumed was empty. But it wasn't. A 72-year-old retired teacher was asleep upstairs. The confrontation was brief but traumatic. Johan didn't harm the man, but his accomplice struck him with a lamp and tied him up. They made away with a few electronics and jewelry. The victim survived, and the duo was arrested within days. Johan cooperated with the police. He confessed, told the truth. But the court wasn't lenient. Given his prior convictions and the use of violence during a burglary, he was sentenced to 5 years at Kumla prison, one of Sweden's highest security facilities. For most people, the name Kumla prison doesn't ring a bell. But in Sweden, it's a fortress, a maximum security facility built to house the country's most dangerous or persistent offenders. With towering fences, motion detectors, and a regime far more structured than most of Sweden's famously lenient prisons, Kumla is where reform takes a backseat to containment. For Johan Gustafsson, this was not just a prison sentence, it was a reckoning. He entered Kumla in the spring of 2013, not as a hardened criminal, but as a worn-out man. At 32, Johan had already tasted the bitterness of failed rehabilitation programs, broken relationships, and addiction cycles. But now, locked into a schedule, surrounded by harder criminals, and stripped of his erratic lifestyle, he found something else. Boredom. Kumla was quiet, sterile, the kind of place that presses silence into your bones. Inmates were kept in individual cells, allowed limited time in common areas, and watched around the clock. Despite its rigidity, the prison offered some dignity. Inmates could take classes, learn trades, even cook their own food. Johan enrolled in a basic mechanics course. Perhaps it was a return to something familiar, those childhood days of fixing broken things. But nothing about prison was truly familiar. Because here's the thing about long-term incarceration, it doesn't just punish, it compresses. Days blur, faces repeat. Small discomforts become large frustrations. And the smallest things, like pain, feel unbearable. It started in June, a dull ache in his lower right jaw. At first, Johan thought it would pass. A stress headache, maybe. He tried to ignore it. But as the days turned to weeks, the pain got worse. Throbbing, deep, relentless. Chewing became impossible. He stopped eating. His cellmate, an older man serving a 15-year sentence for armed robbery, noted that Johan had begun to lose weight and, even more worryingly, to stop talking. He filed his first medical request in early July. Nothing came of it. The problem wasn't that the prison didn't have healthcare. Sweden's prison healthcare system is, on paper, robust. The issue was bureaucracy, a backlog of requests, a single dentist for the entire facility, and a lack of urgency for what they considered a non-life-threatening complaint. So Johan filed another request, and another, By the time August rolled around, the right side of his face had visibly swollen. His gums were inflamed. He couldn't sleep. He'd begun having migraines and dizzy spells. He reported this to the guards. The response? "We're doing what we can. Be patient." But when you're in constant, searing pain, patience feels like cruelty. He wasn't asking for much, just a checkup. Just some antibiotics. Just for someone to believe that he was not okay. Instead, he was handed paracetamol and told to wait. There's something profoundly dehumanizing about being ignored when you're suffering. In prison, that silence echoes louder. Johan began pacing his cell for hours. He pressed his cheek against the concrete wall just to feel the cold. He stopped attending the mechanics class. His cellmate said that by mid-August, he would often mutter to himself, clutching the side of his face, whispering prayers or curses in turns. And yet nothing changed. Until one morning something snapped. Johan wasn't a fighter. He wasn't violent. He wasn't even particularly brave. But pain does strange things to the mind. He decided that if the system wasn't going to treat him, he would find help himself. He began observing the routines. When yard time started, when doors opened, which guards were inattentive. He didn't need to dig a tunnel or bribe a warden. He was in a facility that, though secure, still operated on a certain level of trust for non-violent inmates. And Johan had a history of good behavior, so he waited, planned. And one afternoon in late August, during routine yard time, he walked out. Just like that. No disguise, no panic, no running. Just a man walking through an open gate with a hand on his jaw, tears in his eyes, and a silent scream of relief pounding in his temples. He didn't head for the border. He didn't hide in the woods. He walked openly, plainly into a nearby village. He found a local dental clinic. He stepped inside. And what he said next would make headlines around the world. "Hi, I've just escaped from prison. I need help. My tooth is killing me." It was, by all accounts, the least dramatic prison escape ever recorded in Swedish history. No alarms blared. No guards were assaulted. No security systems hacked. No tunnels, no helicopters. Just one man, in pain, walking away from a system that refused to listen. Johan Gustafsson left Kumla prison during scheduled yard time. Prison officers had grown used to his quiet presence, his slumped shoulders, the growing shadows under his eyes. They didn't notice until it was far too late that one inmate hadn't returned when the gates closed. He didn't even run. Outside, he crossed a few roads, took a shortcut through some bush, and walked 2 kilometers to the nearest small town. The escape wasn't a plan in the normal sense. It was a cry for help, a desperate gamble. He wasn't thinking about freedom. He was thinking about pain. He passed a grocery store. A child stared at him, his face still visibly swollen from infection. He waved, then walked on. Eventually, he arrived at a modest white building with a green sign. Folktandvården, the public dental service. It was 2:14 p.m. on a Wednesday. The receptionist barely looked up from her desk as Johan stepped in. He shuffled to the counter, clutching his face, and said calmly, without any panic, "I've just escaped from prison. I have a really bad toothache. Can I see a dentist, please?" At first, she thought he was joking. Sweden isn't exactly known for dramatic criminals or outlandish confessions. But when he pointed at his face, now swollen to the size of a tennis ball, and repeated himself, her smile faded. She asked him to wait. He sat quietly. Didn't move. Didn't fidget. Just breathed through the pain. Incredibly, the clinic called the police and the dentist simultaneously. And they did see him. Because this is Sweden. He was ushered into a small exam room. The dentist on duty, a middle-aged man named Eric Lundström, later told reporters that he had never seen such severe swelling left untreated for that long without medical attention. Johan's gums were infected. An abscess had developed. The infection had likely spread to his jaw. He was given antibiotics and a numbing injection immediately. While the dental team prepped the tools, Johan, still in visible discomfort, thanked them repeatedly. He said he didn't want to hurt anyone. He just wanted help. He said he'd asked again and again for medical attention inside the prison. He said no one had listened. The procedure lasted just under an hour. Eric drained the abscess, treated the area, and gave Johan a painkiller strong enough to ease the edge of the suffering he had endured for weeks. By the time the police arrived, Johan was sitting in the dental chair, head tilted back, mouth stuffed with cotton, Eyes closed, not in defiance, not in fear, just relief. He offered no resistance when they cuffed him. He even apologized to the officers. "I know it was wrong," he said, "but I didn't know what else to do." Back at Kumla prison, the situation caused an administrative stir. How had a man simply walked out? The prison director released a statement calling the escape regrettable, and a full review was launched. But Johan's escape wasn't just an embarrassment, it was a scandal. Journalists got wind of the story. The phrase "sea-caped for a toothache" lit up Swedish headlines. Public discourse exploded. Was this man a danger to society or a victim of institutional neglect? Some called him reckless, a criminal manipulating the system. But many others saw something else. A broken system, a forgotten man. A prison healthcare protocol that allowed untreated pain to fester until the only escape was, quite literally, escape. As Johan was escorted back to his cell, the guard walking beside him reportedly asked, "Was it worth it?" Johan didn't hesitate. "I can finally sleep." And that, perhaps more than anything, was the most human part of it all. This wasn't a story about freedom or rebellion. It wasn't some grand heist. This was a man so desperate, so tormented by pain, and so ignored by the people tasked with his care, that he chose freedom for a dentist chair rather than suffer in silence one more day. Johan Gustafsson's unusual prison break, leaving Sweden's high-security Kumla prison to seek urgent dental care sparked national outrage, debate, and eventually reform. What began as a strange headline quickly became a serious conversation about inmate healthcare and prison negligence. As public pressure mounted, investigations revealed systemic failures, including medical delays affecting multiple prisoners. In response, the Swedish Prison and Probation Service acknowledged mismanagement, while the Ministry of Justice initiated policy reviews. In court, Johan was given just 30 additional days for the escape, far less than the usual 6 months after the judge called his actions wrong, but understandable, citing the system's failure to treat his pain. Outside prison, his case inspired a wave of activism. Over 60,000 people signed a petition for better inmate healthcare, and the government soon rolled out reforms, prioritizing dental care, revising emergency response protocols, and creating whistleblower channels for prison staff. Though Johan shunned the spotlight, his silent protest forced a powerful reckoning within Sweden's justice system. He never reoffended, reintegrated quietly into society, and vanished from the public eye. Yet his act walking out of prison, not for freedom but for a dentist, remains a powerful reminder that even in confinement, dignity and humanity must not be ignored.